Welcome in, I'm Artris with EB01 just a few weeks away at the time of this recording. I figured it'd be a good time to go in and start previewing some of the decks that get a little bit of support from this limited set that's coming out in between OP06 and OP07. Red Purple Law being one of those that's really strong out of the bat from the support it gets. We're probably going to go over like a purple yellow Croc. And then, of course, right now we're talking about Ivankov, which is a leader from OP02 that I used to play quite a lot, and I feel like it definitely just dropped off after that set. And there's a few pieces of support that come out in EB01 that I think might make Ivankov a little bit more viable. Not necessarily going to win a tournament with per se, but I think that the leader definitely is in a better standing than it was before EB01. And I think that it also has some pretty decent matchups considering what the meta will be going into the EB01 meta. So Ivankov is a leader that says end of your turn, if you have 0 cards in your hand, draw 2 cards. So it sounds a little strange, a leader that kind of rewards you for going down to 0 cards, which hand size is the most important thing in this game. So that feels a little strange, and I can see why this leader didn't really do well after OP02. So before we go into the deck list and talk about the support that Ivankov gets for EB01, if you find anything in this video useful or informative, please make sure to drop a like and a sub. It helps out the channel immensely. I can't thank you enough for the support. And additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, please make sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description below. Would love to have you as part of the community. So what kind of support does Ivankov get in EB01 that makes it a little bit more viable? To be honest, there's not a lot. There's only a handful of cards in blue, and especially impel down type cards that you're going to want to add to the deck. But the most important piece that I think makes Ivankov a little bit more playable is the 6-cost Inazuma, which comes out in EB01, and it says end of your turn, if you have 2 or less cards in hand, draw 2 cards. So the entirety of this deck, you are trying to counter out of as many attacks as possible, have a low hand size, and get to 7 Dawn because you are trying to pull off your biggest combo of your 7-cost Emporio Ivankov character, which says on play, draw cards so that you have 3 cards in hand, and then play up to 1 blue Impel Down type character card with a cost of 6 or less from your hand. So in previous sets before EB01, what you could do with this is either play out your Luffy, which we'll get to in a second. You could play out your blocker Inazuma or the Mr. 3 blocker that's an Impel Down type. But those were just okay options, you know. The best option out of that was the 6-cost Luffy. So now you're able to combo the 6-cost Inazuma off of the 7-cost Ivankov and present the board with 2 7k attackers for the following turn. And on top of that, this stacks on top of your leader ability so that if you are down to 0 cards in hand, you draw 2 off of your leader ability, then you draw 2 more off of this Inazuma, so filling up your hand to 4, which is really huge. I think one of the issues that this deck definitely struggled with is when you do use your leader ability, you draw 2 cards and that's great, but your hand size is pretty well calculated for at least your opponent's attacking math. Whereas if you have 4 cards, it's a lot harder for your opponent to figure out where to go. And oftentimes an opponent will try to go for the bigger bodies, the 7k bodies, and you can defend those pretty easily with 4 cards. This deck is very much stacked with 2ks, so let's go further into the actual deck list besides this new addition here. So we have another new addition here with the Prince Ballet. This is a 2k counter, Impel Down. The effect is not ever going to be used. This is simply just a 2k counter that you can search out with your buggy searcher, which we'll get to in a second as well. Then we're running 4 of the 3-cost Don Quixote do Flamingo blocker. This is an on play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and place them at the top or the bottom of the deck in any order. So it's very important for you to be able to stack your deck. And what you want to be able to do is efficiently be able to get out a 2k counter on a turn where maybe you already have a play set up, or be able to set up the 7-cost Ivankov with a big body to come out with it. So that's why this is a very important card, and it's run at 4. You could also run Peronas as your way to set things up, or also the 5-cost X-Drake, but I think that this deck, 1, is very limited in the space for what you can add, and 2, I think this makes for a very sufficient blocker, very much a Dawn-efficient blocker as well. So on your 10 Dawn turn, you can throw this down, and then if you have the 7-cost Ivankov, you can play that as well. So you couldn't do that necessarily with the 5-cost X-Drake or with the Perona, but those are good options to add into the deck if you decide to make the deck a little bit more stacky. Then we're running 4 of the Blocker Inazuma. This says if you have 1 or less cards in your hand, this character gains plus 2,000 power. So this sometimes will come into effect if you're countering out. You can use this, and now it's a 7k blocker, which is very much a nuisance for your opponent to have to deal with. Otherwise, it will just remain a blocker. You can use the Ivankov 7-cost character ability to put this out on the field. You can also attack with it as well, which I often will do. If it is a 7k blocker, then I will just end up attacking with it because it's a good attacker as well. Then we're running 4 of the Buggy Searcher. This is an on-play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 blue Impel Down type card other than Buggy and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is a great opener. This will be able to grab pretty much your entire deck. There's obviously some cards in this deck that are not Impel Down type, but the majority of them are. And the big targets you're wanting to get with this are your Ivankovs, your Luffys, or your Inazumas. Obviously, getting your 2Ks are very nice here. And the other thing that we'll get to is the stage, which also you could grab, and it's pretty important to grab as well if you do see it. Then we're running 4 of the Monkey D. Luffy. This is a 6-cost, 7,000 power body. On play and when attacking, you may trash 2 cards from your hand, return up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. Then this character gains double attack during this turn. So this is a good card for you to be able to kind of push for game, or maybe remove a threat from the board like a 4-cost Kuzan, or you can also just bounce a blocker back to hand and threaten your opponent with a double attack. You're getting closer to allowing your leader ability to go off by using the Luffy ability here. So this card does serve a good purpose, and I do think it's one of the bigger threats in the deck, especially if you're able to get it out with the 7-cost Ivankov. Then we're running 4 of the Mr. 2 Bonclay. This is a 2k counter and sometimes will come up as a playable character, but I oftentimes will just use this as a 2k counter. It does say Dawn times 1 when attacking. You may trash 1 card from your hand, return up to 1 character with a cost of 2 or less to the bottom of the owner's deck. Then when this battle ends, return this character to the bottom of its owner's deck. So the effect really isn't that great, but if you do need an attacker, it is there for you to be able to play off of either the 7-cost Ivankov or just hardcast it. Then I'm running 4 Kaya. This is an on-play draw 2, trash 2 from your hand. If you don't see any opening cards like a Buggy or your Nukama land, Kaya is a decent alternative as well to be able to filter out and get a little bit closer to the pieces that you do need. Otherwise, though, it's a 2K. Most of the 2Ks in this deck are 2Ks, unlike other decks where 2Ks do have a little bit of utility outside of that. Then I'm running 4 of the Charlotte Pudding, which came out in OPO6. This is a 4-cost on play. Your opponent returns all of the cards from their hand into their deck and shuffles their deck. Then your opponent draws 5 cards. So this is a huge nuisance for a lot of decks that like to stack up cards like Enel, maybe like a Whitebeard. Even some of the Perona variants I've seen lately have been stacking up cards like crazy. So this will definitely be able to hit them pretty hard, especially if you're hitting for 7. It's hard to counter out of 7 every turn. I will say that your early turns with this deck are a little bit awkward, where you will be playing like maybe a 1-cost Buggy on turn 1, a Doflamingo blocker on turn 2, and then your 5-Dawn turn, you don't really have much to do other than maybe play a blocker in Azuma, or you could play the Pudding, but you're swinging 5 every time, so you're not really asking for much from your opponent's hand. So Pudding does make sense in some matchups, but otherwise, it's a solid 1K as well, or maybe even just a body to throw down on the field if you are needing a body to contest the board. Then we're running 4 of the Gum Gum Rain 0-cost event. This is an Impel Down event, and it says you may trash 1 card from your hand. Your leader or up to one of your characters gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. So one of the things with this deck is that you sometimes don't know what you're going to be drawing into with your leader ability or the Inazuma ability, and it can be bricks, and you definitely don't want to be drawing into bricks, because what you often will be doing is swinging with your Ivankov leader character and the Luffy character. So you're wanting to be able to protect your characters as best as possible, and drawing into bricks like a red rock or like a land is definitely not what you want to be doing. So this helps you be able to defend your characters a little bit easier, while also allowing you to get closer to using your leader ability or also the Inazuma ability. I do want to point out that there is an event that came out for Impel Down in blue in EB01 that you might want to consider adding to the deck. I have tried this out, and the reason why I decided to not put this in this deck list is because of the fact that sometimes you will be bricked up and draw into this, and you use your Dawn to the max pretty much every turn. And so leaving one up signifies that you do have this. So what this does is it's a 1-cost event. Says if your leader has the impel down type, give up to one of your leader or characters plus 2,000 power until the end of the battle. Then your opponent returns one of their active characters to the owner's hand. This is very good against yellow when they do have like one body a turn. However, there's a lot of decks out there that, like for Sakazuki, for example, that have a bunch of little weenies on the board, and they're just going to be able to bounce that back to their hand and then play it again and get value off of it. So that's why I decided to opt out of putting this event into the deck and instead just go for a full playset of the Gum Gum Rain, just to be a little bit safer on what I'm getting off of my leader ability and not telegraph what I have as well. Then I'm running 2 Red Rocks. Sometimes there is a threat that you just can't answer and it's going to cause you to lose the game, and you already have a couple of bodies established on the board. Red Rock is perfect for those times, and that's why I'm running 2. It's a situational card. Sometimes if you need it, you can hold on to it. Otherwise, you can just pitch it to either your Luffy ability or like your stage. So yeah, Gum Gum Red Rock, would love to see it when it is needed. However, you don't need it all the time. And then I'm running 2 of the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. This is a OPO6 event that says place up to 2 6-cost or less characters in any order at the bottom of the owner's deck. The trigger says place up to 1 cost 5 or less character on the bottom of the owner's deck. So if you're going against any of the New Brothers decks, that this card is really good against those, especially Black Yellow Luffy. It's really good against Gecko Moria as well. So you definitely have uses for this card. But once again, it's a card that you don't need always. And if you do see 1, it's good to hold on to. 2 feels like a little bit too much. So yeah, I think that it's a good card overall, but I don't necessarily need it. It's just good to get a little bit of momentum back into my favor, especially if I already have bodies on the board. And then to wrap it up, I have 2 of the new Kama lands. This is an activate main. You may rest a stage. If your leader is Ivankov, draw 1 card and then trash 1 card from your hand, then trash up to 3 cards from your hand. So this will allow you to filter through your deck a little bit faster. And on top of that, if you need to use your leader ability for a turn, you can do the additional trash up to 3 cards from your hand and then use your leader ability. And then also Inazuma, if it's on the field, will proc and you'll draw fresh 4. So that's really nice overall. I think that this card, specifically this stage, is extremely important in the deck. However, I don't want it to brick up too much. I had where I was running 3, I was running 4, and I was bricking up way too much. And so I ran it down to 2 and ended up just finding it anytime that I needed it for the most part and being able to play it down. And it worked out just fine. The other things that you can run with this deck are the 9-cost Sanji, which came out, I believe, in OPO6. So if we look at, yeah, OPO6 Sanji, on play, reveal the top card of the deck. You may play up to 1 revealed character with the cost of 9 or less other than Sanji. So the ideal thing is you could stack your deck up and then play the Sanji out, and then the Sanji brings out an Ivankov, and then the Ivankov brings out like an Inazuma or a Luffy. But there's quite a lot of setup for that, and I think that your top end being Ivankov is good enough for this deck. But I will say that I have tested out variants where you have a lot of Perona, all the Doflamingos in the world, a couple X-Drakes. You set up your deck to be able to play the Sanji, Ivankov, Luffy combo, and it feels great. But I think that if you're wanting something a little bit more competitive for a local event, I think that this deck list right here is probably a better bet. So overall, I think that this deck has a little bit of legs to it now, and it feels really good because I used to play this deck quite a lot in OPO2, and it's nice to go back and revisit a leader that I really, really enjoyed playing. Even if it isn't necessarily tier 1, it's still a fun time playing this deck, so hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Let's take it into the sim and see how it does. Let's go first against Sabo. I kind of like this hand, so let's keep it. We have the new Kama land, which we can use right off the bat to see what we can get off the top. I actually think that Gravity Blade is not really useful against Sabo because they just put their bodies back in life, so you don't really get a chance to use it. So let's get rid of this. Now against Black Yellow Luffy or like maybe Blue Yellow Ace, it's fine, but yeah, I don't think it is that great here. So let's swing first, then throw down the Doflamingo blocker. Look at the top. Let's put the red rock at the top. Put this here. Put that there. Put that there. We're putting the red rock at the top so that we can draw it. We don't need it, so we're just going to draw it and trash it. This is just a way to filter out the deck. So this turn, what we'll do is, I imagine it's like a 5, and then maybe like a Luffy. No, they wouldn't have Luffy. They would have like maybe a Zoro come down this turn. Nekomamushi. Okay, so they're the trigger version of this deck, which definitely hurts. Since Nekomamushi is going to be able to attack our blocker anyway, I think it's fine here to just go ahead and attack with the blocker. So we'll go 7 at face. I don't think they're going to take 2 7s. We also have to be careful because they are running, well, the trigger version, but we are at 5 life. So we might actually be in an okay standing here. We'll go 7 at face. I'm not going to use the new Kama land because I know what's coming up next. Yeah, didn't think they would take 2 of them. So the new Kama land will just bring us the Ivankov 7 cost a little bit faster, but we don't need it. We just need it on curve so we can draw into it the next turn and then play it down. Ideally, our hand is really small. Like we can get rid of these 3 cards, then let's do it. If they go after the Doflamingo blocker, we'll let it go. Like, it's not crucial. Okay. Going to stay alive and counter out of what I can. I think a Sabo effect might come down here. They probably would play a Zoro, bump it up to 7, put the Nekomamushi into life. Although it won't come out, if that's the case. Yeah. Do they know it's there? No way. Okay. I was about to say, that's crazy. Yeah, sure. This is still fine. Well, we can't even attack that, so it doesn't really matter. We'll go 5. It doesn't come out because I'm at 4 life right now, which is good for us. We'll pass the turn, draw a couple new cards here. Oh, I'd love to see a bunch of 2Ks come into hand from the Inazuma. This is a turn where if we can get a pudding, I think I'd be pretty happy. But I also think that the buggy is pretty useful this next turn to be able to throw down. If we can find another Ivankov, then we can throw the Ivankov down. But for the most part, I think we're just going to use our counters as efficiently as possible. He's going to use the ace to put it up here and then use this ace to bring it back out. So I think we'll take 1 hit. We'll take 1 hit and then we'll block the other one. So. Yep. This is a really good play. This is one of the strengths of this deck, being able to do this with its leader. So, okay, that's not bad. Let's block this one and then pass. That's actually pretty good. Turn that to hand. Huh. Well, it doesn't do me any good here. So let's just swing at the ace, and hopefully we can get it. 7, 8. We'll get cards out of hand. Oh, it's just gone. Okay, cool. That's even better. Let's use the card action. Return this to their hand. Make them use the Dawn. Then pass the turn. Cool. Good for us. I think that was a pretty good turn. We filled up our board. We got rid of theirs. And now they have a lot of plays to make here. And for us, we have a fair amount of cards to be able to counter with. So I think I'm in a comfortable state right now. We have a 2K and then a bunch of 1Ks. Totally fine with us. The Kiku Nojo, we can just bounce back to their hand and do the double attack Luffy, which is really nice. Although I imagine they could put one Dawn underneath it, put out a Rush Body. I see what they're doing. That's fine. We're going to bait that out, actually. See if we can bait it out of their hand. Like, we want this to come out first and then use the Luffy ability. We don't want to use the Luffy ability because then they're just going to block it. So let's just swing 7. I think I want to swing 9. Go use this, bounce that back to hand. This is a double attack, by the way, so they have to block it or counter out. Countering out of this is going to be very hard for them. It's going to require 3 cards out of their hand. We already know what one of them is. Actually, we know what 2 of them are. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thought they would block that. I think we go here. Before we put any more Dawn on any bodies, let's use the new Kamaland to see what we can get. Our worst case scenario is we play down the Inazuma blocker. Our best case scenario is like, I don't even know, another Ivankov. Yeah, okay, so this is fine. But we're going to dump these 2. And we're going to swing 5 here. We're going to pressure them pretty hard. We're going to make sure that we get the most usage out of all of the bodies on the board. So 5 here, 6 with the Ivankov, and then 7 with the character Ivankov, and then play down a blocker, and then draw 4. It looks like they're out of 2Ks, so it looks like this one is probably going to connect. Pass the turn. Amazing. This is why I have the Gum Gum Rain, is because if you have a dead card like Luffy and your board is already pretty established, the Gum Gum Rain just makes this a 2 and a 1. So now you have a lot of counter. You have 6,000 power in counter with this draw 4. So yeah, this Inazuma is making Ivankov feel a lot more smooth. It's not a perfect deck per se, but it feels a lot better. I'm pretty sure that this is game. This has to be game. This is probably, like, what could they do? I'm trying to think, what could they do to win the game? I don't think there's anything they can do to win the game. I think there's like a couple things they could do to prolong the game, but the next turn, they're going to have all of these bodies to deal with. So yeah, it's pretty rough for them. They might be able to do the ace combo again. We'll counter out. Why not? And then we can use the Inazuma blocker. Yep. This board is menacing. This board is insane. Yeah. This is like peak Ivankov for sure. So okay, against Enel, we always want to go first, but we're second, unfortunately. So let's just keep this hand. We do have a good, decent starting hand that we can find a 6 cost with, and then we can play a blocker the next turn. It's going to be a little bit tricky against them. So we do have to stack up the board with a bunch of 7k attacks, because 7k attacks are really hard for Enel to consistently counter out of. We're going to counter out of this one. They're going to just toss a 6 at us, easy enough. So I'm assuming this is the more aggro variant. Oh, no. This looks to be a little bit of a spicy build. Spicy build indeed. I appreciate this build. I've been playing a little bit with the I Am God build, and definitely interesting. Okay, so what do we want here? I think this next turn, what we can do is we can just draw. Oh, pudding's really good, actually. Pudding's really good. Okay, so we're going to draw the 2k counter. We're going to play down the Inazuma. The following turn, we're going to play the 7 cost, which will draw into this. I want to get this pudding soon, though. Okay. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. This is a turn where they can Gedatsu. And we're okay with that. I mean, we're not okay with it, but it is what it is. You have to live with it sometimes, you know? Alrighty. It's not a Gedatsu. We'll take the hit, though. Holy. Yikes. Yikes. 5. Get him down a little bit. Play the Inazuma, and then pass. Next turn, what we're going to end up doing is we're just going to swing and get cards out of hand, potentially. We could also, just depends on what they do here, we could also use the Gravity Blade and get rid of these 2 bodies, guaranteed. But I think we just counter out. This feels like an Enel turn, yeah. Take it. Let's go here. Let's swing at the Enel. Okay, they're going to counter out. That's fine. Let's play the Luffy. I'm not going to use the Luffy ability, and we'll just draw 2. The following turn, I mean, this is going to be a potential Yamato turn. I don't know if they're running Yamato in this build. So the build that I'm running, that is just like a go fast build. I don't run Yamato, but most Enels, I would say like 99% of Enels do. If they're running the I Am God variant, who knows? I think we do that. I think we do that. I think we go Pudding next turn, actually. We might be able to go Pudding, get them down to 5 cards, use the Luffy ability, do double attack. I don't know if 9k makes sense, but maybe. And then hit for a couple 7s. We're going to be at 10 Dawn, so we... Essentially 6 is playable. 7, we could go 9, 7, 7, and then just Ivankov. I think that might be the play. I do want to throw down this other Ivankov. Like, I want to throw this one down, but... Do we have time? Because I know for a fact that this guy's going to be taking cards here. He has to. We don't even need to like double attack with the Luffy, because if we double attack with the Luffy, he's definitely going to be like countering out of those for sure. And we want him to take this next hit. We want them to take this hit for sure. 7. No trigger. Please no trigger. Okay. That's fine. Eat their hand. Go 7. Nine, maybe? Okay, so they're getting a body out of it. It doesn't really matter, but I want a fresh... I want counters in my hand, just in case this goes wrong. Let's see what we get. Do they have enough? Whew. Close. It was close. They almost had enough to counter out. Would we have been able to survive the crackback? Maybe. Very potentially, so. Okay, going against Zoro. This was a decent matchup in OPO2, but Zoro got a lot more support going forward, whereas Ivankov finally got a little bit, so I think we'll see how the tides have turned over time between these two decks, but typically you could just like tempo them and counter out of enough stuff to stay alive. Although now they're not running the 9-cost Newgate in this build, which at the time when these two matchups were more prevalent, that was what was ran. I don't think we have much option other than to do this, of course. That's fine. I think the next turn we could probably play a pudding down, I suppose. We'll probably have to go like 6. We can counter out of one of these. Maybe use a Gum Gum Rain. Yeah. Go here. We're not countering out of this one. Actually, we can. Cool. Go there. And pass the turn. The following turn, we can go pudding at the Buggy or the Magra. We can just clear the board a little bit and then play out the Ivankov into the Inazuma. I think this turn, if we can use our counters here to stay alive, let's do it. But it is a little bit of a sketch turn, this turn for us, unfortunately. So they are filling up the board with a bunch of weenies. Unfortunate for us, but it is what it is. We can take one hit here. I think we'll be fine. Okay, 6, we'll counter out. Like that. Not bad. Although, I will say, I would rather have, actually... No, that's fine. That's fine. Let's leave it. Once again, let's counter out of what we can here. Take it. Counter. Counter. I think we're actually going to use that. Maybe not. I think we could clear the board, possibly. Let's just clear the board. Draw a fresh 2, and hope to God that they don't have, like, a huge rush unit this turn. There's a potential we could... What is this? Just a 5? Interesting. Must be 2 rush units here. Or it could be the rush Luffy. That's the other thing. Yeah. Ouch. All right. Go 5 here. 7. 7. 9. Let's bounce this back to hand so we can use the double attack ability again if we need to on the second Luffy. I feel like they have enough counter for this. Oh, they don't. Okay. We'll swing. Oh, I see. Swing 6. Is that enough for them to survive? Okay. And then we'll go all in. Hope that they don't have the counter. Hope that they don't have it. Ay, ay, ay. Wow. So close. Very, very close. But I think that, once again, that's how the matchup kind of was in 02. It was like a... You kind of like held out for as long as you could and then just went all in at the end. So, yep. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the Inazuma out because I really wanted to be able to play this, but I think that the Luffy being able to get that out with the double attack threat was a little bit more the better play there, at least. All right, Yamato, we want to go first against Yamato, but this hand is pretty decent as far as like what we can do against them. So let's grab a... I think an Ivankov is fine here, and just hope that they don't have Banish like the next turn. These are fine cards to grab here. Swing 5, and then we'll throw it on a blocker. I think the Inazuma is good to throw it on here. Okay. Then the next turn, what we could do is, I guess, the Luffy. Although this Inazuma definitely does refill our hand pretty nicely. Let's counter out. Go 5 at face, then we're going to bounce this Kiku Nojo back to hand. 1, 2, bounce. I think we might want to take this hit. I don't know. Do we want to take this next hit? Eight cards in hand is also looking pretty good for pudding. Never mind. I do think we want to take this. I'm not sure though. Actually, nah, we don't need to take it. We can counter out. It's not awful. Let's go 8. Go 1, 2, bounce this back to hand. Oh, so you don't want to take a double attack? Is that what I'm hearing, Yamato? We'll play out the Inazuma and then pass the turn. That's hilarious. I guess next turn, though, we can do it again. So now we have the Inazuma on the field. I think we're in a pretty good spot. They do have the Hody Jones that they could throw down, but if they throw a Hody Jones down, I think we're looking pretty good to kind of go for game. The only thing that could stop us is maybe a Bayesian Life, which they are running. Oddly enough. I don't see that many Yamatos run beige, but... Counter out. I imagine they're going to throw a Hody Jones this turn. Hody Jones will rest this, and then they'll go pretty hard at our face. We also don't mind taking a hit here either, because if we take a hit here, then we can at least fill up our hand a little bit. This is awfully suspicious. Awfully suspicious here. Okay, that's fine. Do we want anything? I don't think we do. Double attack here. I think they have to take it. Then we'll go 5. Just to safety it. I'm not going to go all in just yet. I want to see if I can get cards out of hand and then go all in. Yep, we tempoed him pretty well. They said L misclick, so they might have wanted to attack into the Luffy, but even then, I think we would have been in a decent spot to stay alive the next turn. So yeah, I think that this deck handles Yamato pretty well because you're at 5 life, so yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, I really just love this deck, and I'm glad that there is a little bit more playability to it. One of the things that I wanted to see was some more older leaders get back into a somewhat meta state. I'm not saying, once again, I'm not saying this deck is amazing, as you can see by the games in this video. Definitely, there were some struggles. I definitely think that this deck is a lot better, and I think that EB01 overall has improved the deck competency. We'll see a lot more decks like this be able to be played at least in a somewhat competitive manner. So I'm glad that we're able to HEE HAW once more. That feels so good. Overall, though, I'd say this deck is probably a solid, like, B tier if I had to put it somewhere. It's like probably a lower B tier. I would take it to locals and probably pop off with it if I could, but I would probably not recommend taking it to a like regional or like a treasure cup unless you know this deck in and out and you like fine tune it and you can play it really well. This is a deck that I think is semi-competitive. So hopefully, though, the other decks that we'll showcase over EB01 will have a little bit more to the competitive nature overall. Obviously, Red Purple Law is definitely going to be like a tier 0 deck, which gets a lot of support from EB01. And Laker Croc is also one that pops up and can do some things. So we'll see those in future videos. So thank you so much for watching this one, though, and I'll see you guys in the next one.